Daniel, leave him alone. He's not to blame for anything.
These were the last words of my fiancée Tiffany, who decided to ruin our wedding day. I'm a pretty reserved person and it's hard to get me out of myself, but what happened turned me into a real monster, and now I'll tell you what's the matter. Enjoy watching. My name is Daniel. My friends just call me Dan, and I'm 26 years old. I have been actively engaged in boxing for the last 3 years. I'm not aiming to become a champion. I just like to come to the gym a few times a week, fully immersed in the atmosphere, focusing on honing my punches. You can say that this is my hobby, because I genuinely like it, and I train all the time. Thanks to rigorous training, I've gotten myself into excellent shape, shed extra pounds, and built muscles. Sports also helped me develop discipline, which later positively impacted my work. I believe I wanted to overcome my childhood complex through this, as I was chubby and untidy in my early years. While my peers were having fun with girls, I contented myself with fries and video games. I did have relationships, but they never lasted more than 3 weeks. My first time happened at 19, and after a year-long unsuccessful relationship at 23, I decided not to rush into things and stopped actively seeking a partner. Until, at the age of 26, I met her, Tiffany, who was 2 years older than me. Tiffany and I met by chance when I was walking to the gym, and she was on the same street carrying a stack of documents. Accidentally, my backpack knocked all the papers out of Tiffany's hands, scattering them everywhere. Gathering them into a pile, I offered to escort her, and she agreed. She was a slim and attractive blonde with a great sense of humor, dressed in a short skirt. While she was picking up the papers, I even caught a glimpse of her red panties. She worked as a secretary in a big company. After escorting her, she said,
"Thank you so much. I don't even know how to repay you."
Her voice was so gentle that I couldn't help but offer,
"Listen, I have an idea. Let me take you for coffee after work, as an apology for delaying you."
"Great idea. What's your name?"
she asked, and we exchanged contact information. That same evening, I stood waiting for her with a bouquet of flowers from her workplace, and we spent a pleasant evening, ending up in a hotel room with a bottle of wine and fiery passion. You could say it was love at first sight. We started seeing each other more and more. And after a month, Tiffany moved in with me, and we began living together. Everything happened so fast that I lost track of time at some point. Tiffany was hyperactive, accomplishing a lot in a day, which always amazed me. I enjoyed spending time with Tiffany and realized I wanted to propose to her, but before that, we needed to meet each other's parents. After 3 months, everyone knew that Tiffany and I were a couple. I wanted to surprise her, make a proposal right on the Eiffel Tower. I don't know why, but I was confident that she would say yes. Because I didn't party in clubs and didn't spend much money, I managed to save a good amount of money since I turned 18. So, as they say, money talks. I booked plane tickets and a hotel room, and the departure was scheduled exactly in 2 weeks for Tiffany to prepare for the trip and inform her boss. When Tiffany fell asleep, I decided to hide the plane tickets in her wallet so she could discover them pleasantly the next day. It happened roughly as I expected, although I hoped she'd notice them during the day while at work. However, she found them while getting ready for work, and she ended up coming into my bedroom. We spent about 30 minutes indulging in passionate activities, so Tiffany even had to be late for work. 2 weeks later, we flew to Paris, and it was a fantastic experience. I had never traveled before in my life, and being in Paris made me realize I wanted to visit dozens of other countries. Why did I choose Paris? Because this place meant a lot to Tiffany. Her father grew up and studied here. When she was little, he told her many stories about this place, so Tiffany dreamed of visiting Paris. I was happy to help make her dream come true. After arrival, the first thing we did was walk along the Branly embankment. The next day we went shopping and bought a lot of things. We flew to Paris for 7 days. We had a restaurant reservation for 6 days. I was really looking forward to this day, because I had to make Tiffany an offer. When that day came, I was very worried, afraid to mess up or do something wrong. We came to the restaurant, had a delicious meal, drank expensive wine, and when the desserts were brought to us, I got up from the table, knelt down, and proposed to her.
"Tiffany, baby, I love you madly. Will you marry me?"
Yes, yes, yes.
she said, and we started crying. Then was the real peak of my happiness. We went to our room after the restaurant and gave ourselves to each other all night, forgetting about everything. It was a wonderful trip and an unforgettable experience. This trip took me more than 60% of my savings. We did not deny ourselves anything at all, and I did not regret it. I was just glad that I could please my future wife so much. Upon returning home, we immediately went to register our future marriage, paying the fees and undergoing medical examinations. We planned to have the wedding in a month. All this time, it felt like I was in a fog, and my life seemed to take on new colors, anticipating the very day I not only eagerly awaited, but now wanted to erase from my life. Tiffany's parents and mine helped us a lot, and we can afford many things. Usually, the day before the wedding, there would be a bachelor party, which I spent with my friends, and Tiffany with her bridesmaids. And then came the day when I officially transitioned from a bachelor to a married man. It was a solemn event, and we were all very nervous that something might go wrong. Fortunately, the main ceremony went smoothly. Tiffany and I exchanged vows of eternal love and fidelity, then exchanged rings. We celebrated the wedding in a large country house with a vast area, accommodating all 150 guests successfully. Of all the people, I knew about 30-40, which amused me at some point, but mostly they were distant relatives whom I had seen, at most, in photographs. Our wedding was in a traditional style, nothing excessive. We received dozens of congratulations and gifts from our guests. Everyone was smiling and happy. What could possibly go wrong?
Daniel, why is your bride so sad all evening?
My father suddenly said, approaching me.
I don't know. Is she sad? Everything seems fine with her. What's wrong?
I replied.
I just noticed that Tiffany seems off. I don't know. Maybe you should go and talk to her.
My father suggested, and I went to Tiffany, who was sitting at our table sipping champagne. My father was right. Tiffany seemed somehow distant that evening, as if something was wrong. While I was dancing with guests, she sat at our table, and I didn't even notice. I was even angry with myself for it.
My dear, my princess, what happened? Is something hurting you?
I began.
I don't know, my stomach hurts as if I ate something bad.
She replied, and I went to find a painkiller. Fortunately, it didn't take much time, and within a few minutes I returned to Tiffany and gave her a tablet. She took it, and after about 10 minutes, she seemed better. We had a glass of champagne together and went to dance with the guests and participate in contests. All the guests were already in high spirits, so the atmosphere was great. After the contests, various performances started, including magic shows, fire performances, and others. I didn't notice my bride's disappearance right away. My father pointed it out.
Where did you lose your bride?
He said. I looked around and indeed couldn't find her.
Maybe she went to the restroom or somewhere with her friends.
I told my father and continued to enjoy the celebration, but literally after 10 minutes my anxiety increased. How can she be missing for so long? I thought to myself and went in search. I saw some of her friends and decided to ask them if they had seen Tiffany.
No, Daniel, we haven't seen her. Honestly, we wanted to come to you and ask about her.
One of her friends said.
Strange. I'll go ask other guests.
I replied and went in search of my wife. At that moment, it seemed to me like part of some competition. I questioned 10 guests, but none of them had seen her. She seemed to have disappeared. Then I decided to approach my friends Donald and Stephen to help me in the search, but Stephen told me the following.
I saw Tiffany with the cameraman, Mark, I think his name is. A cool guy. He was showing her something on his phone, and then they disappeared somewhere.
Stephen said, and I remembered that Mark was the main cameraman for our wedding. We hired him and his team to shoot the entire event. But why did he take my wife somewhere? All this situation began to worry me, and I approached one of the cameramen and said,
Can you tell me where the main guy, Mark, is right now?
He's either in the hall or in the trailer, changing memory cards.
One of the cameramen said. I thanked him and went to the trailer. I reached the trailer in about 5 minutes. It was a mobile trailer with all the equipment, and if necessary, you could spend the night in it. When I began to approach it, it looked empty, as if no one was inside. Stopping, I began to scrutinize and found that the curtain on the left side of the trailer was swaying. Approaching closer, I heard distinct moans. After standing for about 2 minutes, I wanted to open the trailer door, but it turned out to be locked, and at that moment, the moans ceased. I heard clear movements inside the trailer, and then an unfamiliar voice.
"Who's there?"
It's Daniel, looking for Tiffany, my fiancée,
I said.
"Oh, Daniel, hi. Unfortunately, your fiancée isn't here. I have no idea where she is."
He replied.
Is your name Mark by any chance?
I asked.
"Yes, that's right. I'm your wedding videographer. My team is currently working at the wedding, and I just stopped by to quickly change memory cards."
He confidently replied.
Are you sure? I was told that Tiffany was last seen with you. She approached you, and you might know where she is.
I said.
"I have no idea, buddy. She came up to me, asked to show her a few shots. I showed her, and we went our separate ways."
Mark said, and I sensed something was off.
Okay, Mark. Maybe you'll open the door so that we can have a conversation like strangers.
I decided to ask.
"I was just changing, and you knocked at that moment. If you give me 5 minutes, I'll get ready and come out."
Mark said, and at that moment I saw someone peeking out of the window and then quickly hiding back.
Why are you being so shy? You're not naked in there, I hope. Let me in. I'll check what you've managed to shoot, and you can change in the meantime.
I said.
"Give me 5 minutes."
Mark continued, and my tension increased. I was sure my wife was in that trailer, and this Mark wouldn't let me in. At that moment, my friends Donald and Stephen ran up to me, asking if I found my fiancée. I replied that she was likely in the trailer with the videographer, and they were as shocked as I was.
If you don't open that damn door right now, I won't be responsible for what happens.
I changed my tone and started shouting and banging on the door.
"Daniel, calm down. I'll open it in a moment. Just a couple of minutes."
Mark said. While I was banging on the door, Donald and Stephen climbed onto the trailer's roof, where there was a hatch allowing them to get inside through the roof. They did just that, breaking it open and jumping down. They immediately opened the door for me, and entering, I saw my wife Tiffany, desperately trying to compose herself, while Mark attempted to get ready quickly. I had no doubts. Tiffany had cheated on me in that trailer. The first thing I did was approach Mark and hit him in the face with all my strength, causing him to fall onto the bed but remain conscious. Then, I jumped on him and continued delivering blows. Tiffany, attempting to put on her wedding dress, started screaming.
Daniel, leave him alone. He's not guilty of anything.
Donald and Stephen held her. My wife was in an obviously disturbed state, and at that moment I couldn't recognize her. I sat on Mark and struck him until he blacked out. His face was unrecognizable. Donald and Stephen tried to stop me but couldn't. My hands were covered in blood and my pupils were dilated. I looked like a monster. Later, Donald and Stephen told me that they were scared of me. They were holding Tiffany, who was trying to break free. They were afraid I might harm her. However, I approached and, looking her directly in the eyes, said,
You're rubbish.
Then I left the trailer with Donald and Stephen. At that moment, my father rushed to the trailer and was horrified by my appearance. He didn't ask me anything. He entered the trailer and saw Mark lying on the bed covered in bruises. Tiffany was sitting on the floor crying. He immediately understood everything. We all four sat silently, embracing for about 20 minutes.
Daniel, forgive me.
Tiffany said, coming out of the trailer. She wanted to sit next to me and hug me, but I pushed her away. My father quickly led her away and went to talk to her. I noticed guests coming out of the house and heading towards the trailer. At that moment, I watched them, and suddenly a heavy object hit my head and I blacked out. I woke up the next day in the hospital. I had a concussion, and I felt nauseous. Donald and Stephen were sitting in front of me explaining everything that happened that night. It turned out Mark woke up, took his camera, and when he left the trailer, he approached me from behind, striking me on the head like a real scumbag. Donald and Stephen restrained Mark and called the police. As it turned out, he caused me a more serious injury than I did to him. He likely pretended to lose consciousness, and I fell for it. He waited for the moment when Tiffany would leave the trailer to confront me. Mark also filed a statement against me, claiming that I attacked him first. My father came in and told me what Tiffany had said. He mentioned that she was heavily intoxicated and not in control of herself. She realized her mistake only after I beat up Mark and deeply regretted it. Seriously? Regretted it? She deliberately went into the trailer with Mark and sat silently while I talked to him through the door. And after all that, she wants to say she accidentally cheated on me on our wedding day. I skeptically treated this information, and my father told me that Tiffany wanted to talk to me. However, I flatly refused to talk to her about anything.
This person betrayed me, Dad. I don't want to see her in my life anymore, and I want a divorce.
My father listened to me, wished me a speedy recovery, and left the room. After him, my mom and other relatives visited me, expressing regret. The opinions were divided into two camps. Some said I should forgive Tiffany and give her a second chance, while others said I should leave her. It hurt me deeply that my fiancée had cheated on me on our wedding day. If I forgive her now, what guarantees do I have that it won't happen again? I decided to file for divorce and avoided any communication with Tiffany. After spending a week in the hospital, I went to the police station where I filed a counter-statement against Mark, and we were supposed to have a trial. Mark had already tarnished his reputation and ruined his career as a cameraman, because all my guests gave him low ratings. A month later, we had a court hearing, which I, of course, won. Mark had to compensate me, and he faced possible imprisonment for intentionally causing harm to my health. After that blow, I started experiencing frequent headaches and nausea. Next, I had to get a divorce from Tiffany, but she refused to sign the papers. So I went to court and filed the documents. Tiffany's parents almost called me every day, begging me to forgive their daughter. At some point, I stopped answering their calls. After 2 months, Tiffany voluntarily signed the divorce papers. I even felt sorry for her because, due to her actions, she lost almost all her friends, who considered her deed dirty and immoral. As far as I know, her work situation was not smooth either. I talked to Tiffany after we divorced. We went to a restaurant, and she shared her perspective, trying to justify herself. I could see her remorse and self-blame for what she had done. At one point, she asked,
Maybe we can start over? Give me a second chance, please.
She said, and I almost responded positively, but then quickly snapped out of it, refused, and ended the conversation with her in silence after 5 minutes. Tiffany was the person who cheated, not after 8 years of marriage, but right on the very first day. It was a serious trauma for me because I considered myself a complete failure, experiencing such a situation after deciding to get married for the first time. I even started seeing a psychologist afterward because my childhood complexes resurfaced. I stopped going to the gym, ate more due to stress, and on top of that, I was constantly plagued by headaches and nausea. And how can you trust women at all after that? I don't know. I'm not looking for a girlfriend anymore. I'm thinking of getting a dog and living with it. Working and spending time with friends, at least for the next couple of years. 4 months later, Mark was convicted. Doctors conducted an additional medical examination, and as a result of Mark's blow, my condition only worsened. In the end, Mark was sentenced to 6 years for intentional infliction of harm to health. Am I satisfied? No, I don't care. I just want a happy, peaceful life, to develop and build my career, and I don't plan on serious relationships for now. I will continue working with a psychologist. I'm even glad that Mark didn't cause me severe injuries, otherwise I would be the one in prison. It's been 8 months since that fateful evening that turned my life upside down. And what can I say? My life is getting better. Tiffany tried to reach out to me a couple of times, but I completely erased her from my life. I'm undergoing treatment and regularly seeing doctors, and my indicators are improving. Doctors say that if this continues, I'll be able to start light workouts in 6 months, and that makes me happy. Recently, we went fishing with tents and a bonfire with friends and had a great time. On weekdays, I work, and everything is good for me. I regret nothing. I accepted the situation and move on. Thank you for listening to my story.
This is the end of the story. We will be very interested to hear your opinion about this story, because it turned out to be ambiguous. Do you think the main character is a Terpka or a real man? Was his decision right to propose to his girlfriend after 3 months of a relationship? Why did the bride decide to commit adultery? Is it the effect of alcohol or not? We believe that the main character is a moral person. He lost his temper but was able to stop. Yes, Mark tricked him. But the main character did not inflict serious injuries on him Although he could easily, does this make him a rag? We think not. The main character was confused. He did not understand what was happening, but it was extremely unreasonable and logical for him to propose to a girl with whom you have been dating for only 3 months. We believe that 3 months is a very short time to take such a serious step. The girl's betrayal is 50% to 50%. We can't get into her head and find out the true reason, but it's alcohol, and she just justifies herself with it. We do not believe that it is possible to get drunk to such an extent that you voluntarily go to the trailer and sleep with another man, and at your own wedding. This is generally a tin. We have made such conclusions. Write your own in the comments, and we will definitely read them. Subscribe to the channel and like it.